I want to thank everybody for joining us here today or watching online. My name is Justin Trottier. I am the Executive Director of the Canadian Association for Equality, or CAFE. And I want to just acknowledge that this event in Toronto is being hosted in solidarity with events in other parts of the country, including in Edmonton, in Ottawa and Hull, in Montreal, in the Long Plain First Nation and Portage la Prairie in Manitoba. After we're done here, we're going to go to the park across from our agency to hang our neckties in solidarity with those events. So we hope you will join us for that. I just introduce my colleagues here at this press conference. To my left is Robert Samery, the chair of our board of directors, as well as public policy director. To my right is Denise Fong, our marketing and outreach director, and to her right is James Brown, the president of CAFE. Today, we're proud to stand, or sit, with our Indigenous sisters and brothers with one simple goal: to urge the Canadian government to expand the scope of the upcoming inquiry to include Indigenous men and boys. Denise?
We are grateful that the government has indicated their commitment to launching an inquiry, and we fully support this. We are not in any way trying to reduce the significance of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. We simply think the federal government should apply the resources required to examine this unacceptable circumstance that affects everyone and not simply one aspect of it. I want to be clear that we're doing this in support of Lydia Daniels and her colleagues. Lydia, who is from Long Plain First Nation in Manitoba, came up with the necktie concept after being inspired by the Red Cloth Ribbons Memorial campaign that was started to honor missing and murdered Indigenous women. Lydia Daniels' son, Colton Pratt, has been missing since November of 2014. Ms. Daniels and her friends and family are also hanging neckties today in Long Plain First Nation in Manitoba, where she lives.
Aboriginal people make up about 5% of Canada's population, but 25% of murder victims in Canada in 2014, which is shocking. According to Statistics Canada data, approximately 2,500 Aboriginal people were murdered in Canada between 1982 and 2011, and of these 2,500 murdered Aboriginal Canadians, fully 71%, which is 1,750, were male, 745 were female. One was listed as of unknown gender. CAFE, let's be clear, is not an organization with expertise in Indigenous affairs, nor do we claim to be, but we do champion public policies that are inclusive to all, inclusive of all ethnicities and races, people of all ages and socioeconomic status, and also folks of all sexual orientation and gender. Now, the government has held pre-inquiry meetings across Canada because they wanted to hear from the Indigenous community to see how they wanted this inquiry to be run. And at 9 of these first 13 meetings, participants told the government that they wanted men and boys included, that they demanded that. This happened in Ottawa, Thunder Bay, Whitehorse, Vancouver, Prince George, Halifax, Montreal, and Winnipeg. So families of victims have been clear in demanding the inclusion of men and boys. Now, just a note on where events are happening today as part of the Necktie campaign. Today, March 31st, 2016, there will be a series of events across Canada as part of the Necktie campaign. Here in Toronto, this is our national press conference at the Centre for Men and Families. In Edmonton at 11 a.m. local time, there will be a necktie hanging ceremony at Ezio Farioni Park. That's the west side of the north end of High Level Bridge. In Montreal at 12:15 p.m. local time, there will be a necktie hanging ceremony at the park at Place Émilie Gamelin. That's bordered by de Maisonneuve and Sainte Catherine and Saint-Hubert and Barrie at the Barrie-UQAM metro station. Also throughout the day, events will be held at necktie hanging ceremonies at the Long Plain First Nation and Portage la Prairie in Manitoba.
I want to read an announcement from Kevin Daniels, Interim National Chief of the Congress of Aboriginal Peoples in support of this campaign. He wrote that today at 11 a.m. at Victoria Island, located in Ottawa, Hull, representatives of the Confederation of Aboriginal People of Ontario and Quebec, Grand Chief Thomas Square and Grand Chief Roger Fleury will join Sue Martin of Home Fires Burning and others supporting the Necktie campaign for missing and murdered men and young boys. Since April of 2015, Sue Martin has been in vigil, praying for a national inquiry for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Since her vigil began, we have seen the election of a new federal government and the process of pre-inquiry engagements across the country to begin a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and young girls. And we thank all the women's activists that began this courageous fight. He also wrote that neckties will be hung in a path leading to the Department of Indigenous Affairs in Hull, Quebec, in hopes of the spirits of our missing and murdered loved ones will be recognized. We support the efforts of Lydia Daniels and her Necktie campaign to see the safe return of her son, Colton Pratt.
I want to thank Kevin Daniels, a well-known and well-regarded Aboriginal rights activist, for working in solidarity with this campaign and for sending us that announcement. Here's what you can do, those of you watching at home or those of you who want to support this campaign from wherever you are. Firstly, hang a necktie today, March 31st, 2016, in support of the campaign started by Lydia Daniels. Once again, her son, Colton Pratt, is still missing. You can join your local branch of the Canadian Association for Equality as per the events in local neighborhoods that have been described. If you do hang neckties, either with a group or individually, take pictures of them, share them with your friends, send them to us, info@equalitycanada.com, tweet the photo using hashtag #IncludeMen. You can also sign a petition on our website. The campaign website is www.equalitycanada.com/necktie-campaign. The petition is called for a gender-inclusive inquiry into murdered and missing Aboriginal Canadians. It was launched by Professor Adam Jones, political science prof at UBC, who's done a tremendous amount of research and advocacy on this file. You can also write to the ministers involved in the inquiry and your own MP, and of course always be respectful in your correspondence. For contact information on these elected officials, again, you can visit that website, equalitycanada.com/necktie-campaign. And once again, we're going to be active on social media with photos and comments, including with the hashtag #IncludeMen. In conclusion, we're calling on the government to keep its promise to design an inquiry that will honor all the victims by including the vast majority of them who are men and boys. We are, it should be stated, at the research stage, and research, we believe, should always be kept as inclusive as possible. That is the only way to get to the root cause of complicated problems and find truly effective solutions. We are going to be going out to the park, Allen Gardens, across from our agency, the Center for Men and Families, to hang our neckties around trees in solidarity as part of this campaign. And as we do that, I want you to take a moment and imagine how you would feel if it were your loved one who went missing, and whether you think it would make a difference whether that was a son or a daughter who went missing. Far too many victims are being left out of this inquiry and deserve to be included. With that, we thank you for your attention, and if there are any questions, we'll be pleased to take them, and then we'll encourage you to join us at the park across the street. Thank you again.